but I believe you were offered over $1 million for a 2-year deal. In exchange, you had to fire your hitting coach.
No,
And you said
I had to fire 4 coaches.
you had to fire 4 coaches. And you said you wouldn't do it.
Right. There's no other reason why. I was there 19 years.
And that was a lot of money back then. I mean,
I didn't want to leave the Yankees. I didn't. It broke my heart. But as my dad said, he said at some point, I'll never forget his statement. He said, some point you're going to have to plant your feet and make a stand. It's not now, but you'll know when it is. And it may not be pleasant initially, but it'll pay off in the long run. So that was that moment, because all those guys were part of our success with the Yankees. And a lot of people don't understand this. I think you guys will. I walk in a locker room. To this day, I can't believe when managers give up their coaches. I walk in the locker room, I say, we're all doing this together, da, 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 da. Oh, by the way, all those guys I said were great, I let them fire them. If I was a player, I'd go, why do I believe anything you're saying? You're giving up coaches left and right. And I also knew, well, those guys, 4 guys went on to have 20-year careers as coaches. I had the right guys.
Yeah.
And Rick Down, you may have known Rick.
Yeah.
Rick was one of them. Mark Connor was with Toronto too. Brian Butterfield was one of them. These guys,
yeah.
Glenn Sherlock, all those guys. And I took them with me to Arizona. Now, listen, I didn't have a job. I didn't have an interview. I didn't have anything. I came home. My wife said, what are you doing? It wasn't good around our house for a little while.
Well, because then there's that, I'm looking at, the years here. There's a 3-year gap.
No, I went, and when my contract ran out at midnight in October 31st, Jerry Colangelo of the Diamondbacks called me at 12:01 that day with the Diamondbacks.
And the Diamondbacks were not a team yet.
No, but I went out there for 2 years with them and brought those 4 guys with me, and we put the thing together.
So tell me that, because I'm so intrigued by that, because
that was challenging.
Everything I can imagine.
If someone called me and said, put a scouting department, put a player development, put a Latin American program together. I mean, we were in Boca Chica.
So y'all were doing everything from the y'all had nothing at that point.
Stadium, locker room, dugout.
So it's safe to say we take for granted the complexity of a major league organization when it's already built, and when you have to start from ground zero. It's not, hey, I'm just going to get coaches and players, they're going to build the stadium. It's finding minor league affiliates.
Actually building the stadium was, but as far as the dugout, the locker room, spring training in Tucson, we started from scratch with HOK. They probably didn't like me real well, but I wanted it right. To this day, I think that might be the best spring training complex functionality ever made, because they let baseball people design it.
Yeah.
The second best one's in Sarasota, the one that they let us design with the HOK people for the Orioles.
For Orioles, yeah.
And didn't spend a lot of money. Nowadays, I think they've made them too good.
Do you think so?
They've actually made some of them where players can get lost. I'm very protective where players can be a team, whether it's mode of travel, the locker room. Like, first thing I do when I go into places, everybody that's not on the team gets out of the locker room. There's 26 players in there. That's it. And, because it's an interview room half the time, but when they can drop their hair and be themselves and interact with their teammates, you can't take that away from them. You can't have a batting practice pitcher and a bullpen catcher and somebody that might go say something to the front office. You don't want that in there. Let them be themselves. Drop their guard. There's so many times they're so guarded, but, you got to fight that fight for them.
What was the most
Arizona was a challenge.
Yeah. What was probably the most difficult part of that whole process? Because this is a very long process.
Well, let's see. I went to Japan, went to Korea, went to Venezuela, went to Dominican, went to Mexico, Colombia, Panama. I mean, we went to all these places trying to set up a base. I mean, we worked out a deal with Japan.
So this is for player development and scouting?
Player development and scouting, setting up the scouts. We had to run the expansion draft. If someone called me and said, hey, we want you to run the expansion draft again, I'd go, I'm out. Almost died.
Really?
That's the hardest I've ever worked in but I didn't want to disappoint them. They had stepped out on us with 2 years before because they thought that we could set all this up, and we did. And we left no stone unturned.
Real quick, how does an expansion draft work?
Well, we had that time we had 35 picks.
Okay.
I did the math. Each pick was worth about $3 million by what Jerry had paid for the franchise. So basically you had a protection list. Let's say you're the Cleveland Indians. You had a protection list. You got to protect 15 players. And after each round, you could draw back 2 or 3, I forget, and put 2 or 3 more on there. let's say we took Cody Allen with the first pick. Well, now they can put 3 more guys on there. And if I took you with the first pick, then Cleveland's closed out the whole first round.
Okay.
There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of stuff going on. I could tell you so many stories in that draft room. We made a trade for a guy. It was, remember Felix Rodriguez, Fifi, hard throwing right-hander closer for the Giants. He was a catcher, and the Dodgers had converted him on a backfield over in Boca Chica, Dominican, and we had heard about it and watched him. He was throwing 100. No, they didn't think anybody knew about it, but a GM called me, pulled me out of the meeting, said, "Hey, this is 2 weeks before the draft." He said, "I'll let you take any guy on our expansion unprotected list and trade him for him right now. And we get to pick who you're going to take from us." In other words, he's banking that he knows his players better than we know our players.
Okay.
So I went, let me go back to the room, and I'll never forget Eddie Durkin had Cincinnati. I already gave it up. And I go, "Eddie, anybody with Cincinnati you'd love to have right now?" He goes, "They only got one player I want in the whole draft." But he called him Fifi, Felix Rodriguez. I said, "Well, if I could deliver him right now, you want him?" He goes, "Yeah." Back in, I said, "All right, we'll do it." I got the player. And then he was going to, now this is all illegal. You can't do this. So I knew that he couldn't go give it up.
Yeah.
Because it would come down on him too. So I figured I could take whoever I wanted to in that draft. What's he going to do about it?
Yeah.
So we get the player, and he was ticked. He goes, "As a catcher?" And I go, "No, we're going to take him as a pitcher." He goes, "Who you got down here? Who's been looking at this?" We had a guy that was up in the coconut trees watching him throw on the side. Mel Didier. And
Mel Didier.
And
God
Mel
rest his
was the
soul.
one that was watching him. And he was one of our expansion draft scouts, who then I made the farm director. He was a great farm director.
Yeah.
And so I think this was a guy named Scott Winchester or somebody we had to take for him.
Yeah.
Well, our people said, "So you're going to take him with the first pick and satisfy the trade?" I go, "No, we're going to get people we want. Damian Miller we got, and Dave DeLucci, and first round gets
Y'all took Damian Miller in the expansion draft?
Yeah. Knocking on the door. But I wish I could tell you why we took them. Like, we got through. We took them, a lot of it was makeup.
Yeah.
A lot of it was, I knew DeLucci, and we traded 27 of them the first year. I talked to the Rockies and the Marlins, and one thing they kept telling me was, don't fall in love with expansion draft players. You're going to find out why they were available. So we had like 4 or 5 keepers, and we found out who wanted Kareem Garcia. We got Luis Gonzalez with Kareem Garcia. But
that's wild.
The whole dynamic of that draft, though, if someone called and said, "Hey, would like for you to run it again," I go, I'm telling you, when it was over and we started playing, it was like stealing compared to what we were doing there. We're in Yuma, Arizona. First spring training we ever had was in Yuma. You ever been in Yuma, Arizona?
No, I haven't been to Yuma.
That was, we had 30 players in our first camp, and 6 of them played in the big leagues. Rod Barajas.
Yeah.
Different guys played in the big league.